Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative Podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions for the worlds of sports, TV, film, pop culture, lifestyle, everything really depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis, and on social media, you know me as PD Beats. And my guest is a professional hockey player who plays for Canada's national women's hockey team. She represented Canada in the Pyeongchang 2018 Winter Olympic Games. We are with Sarah Nurse. Sarah, welcome to Popternative.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No problem. How's the quarantine been for you? How have you been kind of staying busy during these times?
It's been all right. I think you have to get a little creative with what you do during the days. So, obviously I'm an athlete, so I've been working out, doing yoga, also picking up some new things, doing some piano and some reading, and yeah, just trying to keep myself as busy as possible and not take things, be under too much pressure. I don't force myself to do anything. I think productivity is something that is like a huge thing right now, and I think it's very personal.
No, absolutely. So that's what I was going to ask you. Are you set up to kind of work out? Because obviously with this quarantine, a lot of people might not be set up. They might have a few dumbbells and like a bench, but are you kind of finding it a struggle to kind of work out while you're quarantined?
Yeah, it is the biggest struggle. I'm very fortunate. I don't live in a condo or anything. I'm at actually my parents' house, so at least we have our basement. But before quarantine started, I had absolutely zero workout equipment, so I had to scramble and get a bike. I made my dad get this 5-gallon water jug so I can use as a weight, because it was $5 I think at the grocery store and a cheap weight. So I don't have an amazing setup here, but my trainers have been awesome, and so they've been giving me some body weight stuff, because I don't have all the resources that I usually do.
For sure. If we kind of talk a little bit about your career as a hockey player for a minute, you're in a very interesting. Your story is very interesting because you're still considered one of the younger players in the national team program, but at the same time you've accomplished a good amount and made a lot of teams and played in a lot of tournaments. So I find it interesting because at the same time there's a lot that you will accomplish and you have a lot of opportunities down the road, but at such a young age you've become a pivotal part of Team Canada's national program. Have you ever thought about that spot you're in a little bit? Because it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is a very interesting spot, because I have gone to the Olympics. I played on the national team for a few years now. But, of that Olympic team, I was the second youngest one on the team. So it's funny, when we look around the locker room, we talk about, the vets and the rookies. Me and Emily Clark call ourselves, the baby vets. Because, we're not too high on the totem pole, but, I don't think we're rookies anymore. So,
baby vets, that's interesting.
Yeah, baby vets. So, I don't consider myself a full-fledged veteran in by any means, but the girls that I played with have accomplished so much, and I've seen the hard work and dedication that they put in, and so I definitely want to accomplish as much as they do one day, and I'm so blessed that in my young career I have accomplished a little bit, but I definitely think there's more to come.
I work in hockey, so I see it right away, and I see, in the rinks we work at in Ottawa, the development of women's hockey at a young age is becoming a lot better. There's more players enrolling. I see it, Sarah. It's booming. From your perspective, being a professional player, is that something that you've noticed a little bit? That not necessarily. We'll talk about kind of the popularity of the sport and the amazing product of women's hockey, but in terms of enrollment and players wanting to play, have you noticed that a little bit?
Absolutely. I was still one of the ones that actually grew up playing boys hockey. Girls hockey was pretty much in its infancy at that point. So to see that little girls can start at 4 years old and play hockey with other girls is huge to me, because I know although boys hockey was absolutely amazing, I had still great friends and such great teammates playing boys hockey. It's totally different playing girls hockey, that family and that camaraderie that you get. And so to see that is amazing. We see young girls coming out to our games. I meet young girls in malls who recognize me and say that they're playing hockey, and they're in their little team jackets, and I'm that's just amazing, because that's something that wasn't around when I was a kid, and it just makes me so hopeful for the future of the sport, that there's so many young girls coming up who are wanting to play.
For sure. If we talk about kind of moments in regards to the popularity and the growth of women's hockey. I can think of a lot of things on the top of your head. I can think of I can look back a couple of years ago before you were part of the national team. I could look at, Vancouver as a real big kind of milestone event for the sport as a whole. But I can also look at, Sochi and Pyeongchang. But specifically, you were kind of part of a really cool weekend recently, the NHL All-Star Weekend, where you all got to kind of show what you got, so to speak, and that was really, really cool. And I think important for the sport.
Yeah, it was huge. This year has obviously been a very challenging one for the women's hockey community. And I think that the NHL has brought women in for the last few years into their All-Star Weekend in kind of minor roles, like rightfully so. It's not a women's hockey weekend, it's the NHL All-Star Weekend. And so this year when they decided to bring us in and we found out that it was going to be that 3-on-3 format and that there was going to be 20 of us there, we were so grateful because that was the platform that we needed this year. We needed people to see us playing our game, and we need them to see our product and not just maybe demonstrating a drill. And so I think that was the coolest thing because they gave us that opportunity. And, in hindsight, with us not having the World Championships this year, that was the biggest stage that we had this year. And I think it was huge because there was so much positive feedback and so many people, commenting, they'd never seen women's hockey and they're so impressed by the speed and everything that went on during that game. And it was a lot of fun. And it was really cool that we beat the U.S. because we got a little bragging rights.
No, absolutely. It was monumental for sure.
Yeah.
What was it like sharing a room with them? Everyone asked that, that weekend because you found out you guys were sharing the same locker room. I know it's supposed to be kind of this like fun game. You're growing the sports together, but there definitely is, when the switch is turned on with a hockey game, there's some animosity over there. Like, was that kind of weird or was it okay?
I think that, when we first walked into the dressing room, obviously we had no idea that was going to be kind of the setup. But the thing is, we are all friends and we're all civil off the ice. So, we were getting along all weekend.
Yeah.
Obviously there was that kind of divide with the Americans on one side and us on the other. And I don't think it actually really started until we practiced that morning and we kind of realized that, okay, we have a game to play tonight. And then as we kind of went into the game, obviously, all bets were off. There's still that fierce rivalry, and there was a lot of pride on the line. We wanted to show the world that, Canada was the better country. And so we went into that game and there was a lot of fierceness. And then after the game, I always tell the story that we walked in, we kind of wanted to celebrate a little bit because, it was a pretty big, pretty exciting win. And you could see the U.S. girls, they weren't too happy about what was going on. But yeah, they delivered us beers later that night. So it was pretty funny.
You're making me feel a bit crummy segueing to Pyeongchang right now. But
we should have talked about this before.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was going to bring it up, but I just wanted to say, that was your first Olympics.
Yeah.
And you get to say what a lot of people don't get to say, which is you participated in Olympic Games, which is pretty crazy. Not the outcome Canada wanted, but I watched that whole game, and that overtime was one of the greatest hockey I've ever seen in my life, let alone women's hockey. I'm comparing this to NHL and, Olympics and World Championship, World Juniors. That was a crazy game before the shootout. It was wild.
It was. It absolutely was. I think if you look at the progression of the respective Olympic Games, leading up to that game, we just gained so much momentum coming out of, I know 2014 was 4 years before, but that was a huge game and one of the greatest games of hockey history.
For sure.
And then as we went into Pyeongchang, obviously, we had some crazy stat that was we had the best record in Olympic history. I think we were 25-0 or something like that before that gold medal game. And obviously tensions were high. The game was high paced. There was a lot of hatred. Obviously there was a huge rivalry. And when we went into overtime, I think our confidence never wavered one time during the entire tournament. I think that was probably the most confident that we had been in ourselves throughout the entire season. We played the U.S. A bunch leading up, and I think that we were so confident and so just confident in our preparation, and our faith didn't waver in each other. And so when it went to a shootout, I think that's where we kind of got a little sticky because during the entire year, the shootout really was not our thing. And I remember when Natalie Spooner went and she didn't score, and that is like an anomaly. Like Spooner always scores in shootouts, and when we saw the puck like just flip off her stick, like it hit something and flip off her stick, like it wasn't her, we were like,
Yeah.
like that's one of our better shootout people, and we were like, let's cross our fingers, hope for the best, start praying, because that just wasn't our thing. And we all know that the US is so skilled individually, and it was a tough way to end it, because obviously a shootout's a skills competition, and it doesn't really reflect on that team game. So I mean, the only positive that really came out of that for us was that it got the world talking about how we lost in a shootout and how that wasn't very hockey like. And so I think that was pretty big.
So this was like 2 years ago. We're talking about it now. When I had, Natalie Spooner on and I was talking to her, that was like a year ago. I interviewed Rebecca Johnston 2 weeks after the game.
Oh boy.
And
Still fresh.
And I will say, I've talked to her about this. I just went on Instagram live with her last week. She's great.
Yeah.
I will say, I've told her this. We joked around. That was one of like the hardest interviews I've ever done, because like all you girls, you're all very passionate about it and it means the world to you.
Yeah.
And it was tough. And I know she's cool and everything and she was awesome about it. But like when I asked, about like it was like if you go back and watch it, like when I'm asking about the shootout,
yeah,
I'm like heeing and hawing and I'm kind of like, not the outcome you wanted.
Let's just address the elephant in the room.
And then she blatantly is just like, no one wants to win in a shootout. And I was like, okay, we're getting into this right now.
Like the thing is, as a competitor too, like when it goes into a shootout, like that's not the way you want to win, because it's a cop out. You know? And like I have won in shootouts. Like I am the first one to be like, that's tough. You want to keep playing until somebody scores.
I remember, it's funny how people like, you remember the National Hockey League days where there wasn't shootouts, and people were so happy to bring a shootout in.
Yeah.
And now the narrative is completely different, where they don't want shootouts.
Right. And I think the thing that with the NHL too is like they've adopted so many different formats. Like even the 3-on-3 format they play like is great. And I think even if we would have done that at the Olympics, like a goal would have been scored. It's so much more offensive than 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think even adopting something like that would be more beneficial, because a goal is going to be scored. You don't want to win in a shootout. Like anybody who plays knows that's not the way you want to win a game.
For sure. Two more things I kind of wanted to talk to you about. One, I wanted to kind of talk to you about, your family. I mean, it's an understatement. I mean, your family is very athletic. Like there's a lot of people that play sports. Your cousins, Darnell and Kia, and Donovan McNabb, I believe, is your uncle.
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty crazy to see that. Do you find there's pressure though with that? Obviously, that like, does that ever happen to family reunions? It's like, oh, look at everything that was accomplished, and then everyone's like, there's a competitive nature to it. Like, what's that like a little bit?
I don't think we're very competitive with each other anymore, just because we're in totally different worlds.
Anymore.
Yeah, because I mean, when we were younger, obviously we would compete. Like we played sports together.
Yeah.
Right. And so we would definitely compete with each other. I remember running cross country like against Kia, and so like her and I finishing 2 and 3. I finished 2, but
wow, okay.
But I mean, like I play her in basketball or soccer, and she's an absolute dominant force, and so we always competed against each other growing up. And I think it helped us in a way that it kind of drove us to want to be better in our respective sports. Like
for sure,
he would come home and be defensive player of the year, and I was like, all right, let me come home with something too. But it's not like a direct competition with each other. And so especially now, I mean, we're all in these different worlds doing our own things, and so it's kind of refreshing to kind of hang out with everybody and just hear how everybody's doing.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Have you done an Instagram live yet?
Yes.
Kia did one like really right when the quarantine hit. She hopped on with Arkells.
Yeah.
That was really good. I like the kind of mix of the sports and the music. It was a really good live.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome. And another thing I wanted to tell you is, college hockey. You're a Wisconsin Badger, and I'm sure it's one of those things where you're a former Wisconsin Badger, but a lot of people say that their college days and their hockey days are so close to their hearts that you're always going to be kind of a Badger for life. Is the feeling mutual there?
Yes. I actually had a call with my former teammates because we're gonna do something as like a little alumni, and just sharing stories and talking about college, like it makes me miss it so much. It was like when people talk about college athletics, like it is the most unique experience and something unlike any other thing in the whole world. And those 4 or 5 years that you're there are probably some of the best memories that you're gonna have, and some friendships and relationships that you're going to take with you for the rest of your life. And I had the best time ever at the University of Wisconsin. I would hype it up and recommend it to absolutely anybody who has the option to go there. But yeah, it's one of my favorite places in the world. I'll go back to Madison any day and hang out with whoever.
What was the attendance like overall, not just hockey, like overall, like obviously more sports had bigger crowds, but specifically for the men's and the women's, what were like the attendance like? Were there some like crazy games, rivalries and everything?
Yeah, I mean, we're a Big Ten school, and so even if people aren't hockey fans, they're Badger fans, they're coming to the game.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Which is awesome. So, I mean, for men's and women's hockey, I guess our big sports on campus really were football, basketball, volleyball, and then hockey.
Yeah.
And I guess for our games, we sold my last 3 years of school, we sold out almost every single game. And so our arena sat 2,600 people, I believe. And so we had a full arena every time we played at home. Men's hockey played in a bigger arena. They had like 15,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
College sports.
Right. Yeah. So I think like I look at the crowds that we got for hockey and basketball, and obviously football, we had 90,000 fans.
Did you go to a lot of games being an athlete, like a student athlete?
We didn't get to a ton. We would get to the ones in early September, kind of before our season started, just because, I mean, like all the schedules work with each other, whereas like we're on the road, somebody's at home kind of thing. So we didn't get to a ton, but we definitely got to the first football game of the year, which was always a lot of fun.
No, absolutely. Well, yeah. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me on Popternative.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Where can people follow you on social media to kind of keep up to date with everything?
Yeah, you can definitely follow me on Instagram, Twitter, at Nursey16. Also our Professional Women's Hockey Players Association, at PWHPA on Instagram and Twitter.
Absolutely. That is awesome. And hope you and your family are staying safe during this time.
Thank you. You too.
No, absolutely. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Sarah Nurse and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.